Are we live? Yes, Zakery, we're live. Well, in that case, welcome to the NONSENSUS. Should I play the theme music? Yeah, I'll do that for a moment. Oh. It's gonna be just as weird as now is, I promise. The future's gonna be absurd as the past. Be sure of that. The future's gonna be just as weird as now is, I promise. The future's gonna be absurd as the past. Be sure of that. Wow, that's even more appropriate today. The future is going to be just as weird as now is. I promise. The future is going to be absurd as the past. And other adjectives could be used. Not just weird, which doesn't really have a definition, and that's why I love it and say it so much, because it's like this. It's this stand-in word for so many things. Weird. I love that word, and I use it a lot because it doesn't have a clear definition, and because I think it is itself weird. Like, it's weird that we have this word that you can just fluidly, gracefully go from being derogatory, oh, you're like being weird in a weird way, to very positive, like I am a bit of a weirdo, unless you mean like weirdo, in which case I am not, or at least not dangerously so. Wait, my whole life hasn't played out yet. Anyway, today we're off to a weird start. Today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day in America. Previously, or should I say also known as Turtle Island. It is MLK Day in the USA. And America is going through some stuff right now. It's 2021, January 18th, 2021. America is going through some stuff that I think really compounds the profundity of this holiday, when the mass public is speaking and thinking and memeing a lot about MLK. I mean, we are often, but today particularly, there is a lot of sharing of memes. For those of you who just walked into the theater, there's been a pandemic, and there's, wow, do I have to give the whole context of, so a lot of people are historically hunkered down this year right now in the world, in America. And there is an inauguration of a new president in a couple of days. And in preparation for that, it has been deemed necessary, and I would say that it is, that the United States Capitol and capitals all over the country are heavily militarized zones right now. There are tens of thousands of soldiers, and there's these images of soldiers sleeping in the Capitol building, and I have a lot that I've been thinking and feeling about that, but I'm going to try to stay on topic here. Oh, look, I have something to read. That'll help for a bit to keep me on topic. I'm going to stay on topic this entire time, but I have a tendency to veer into what my mind experiences as parallels to the thing that I'm talking about. So I'm not going to be specifically just talking about Martin Luther King Jr. or civil rights in America this entire time, but it will be on topic in a sort of psycho-spiritual way. I should read this so that I get the thought out that I wanted to predicate this particular broadcast. Hello, everyone. Hello. Yes, the current situation in America, I think, really compounds the profundity of a day when the mass public is speaking and thinking and memeing about Martin Luther King Jr. and sitting with all the context surrounding his story and legacy. I remember precisely how I spent this day last year, January 18th, 2020, because around noon, I saw a meme, and it opened up my mind. I saw a meme that learned me deeper about the story of Martin Luther King Jr. and his relationship and what went on between him and the United States government, particularly the FBI. And I read for the first time the "You Are Done" letter from the FBI trying to convince him to kill himself. Then by nightfall, I had decided to eat mushrooms at the house I grew up in and absorb speech footage and documentaries of MLK in that wide open state, which gave me a chuckle today when I remembered that I did that last year. And I know that it seems like an odd choice to those who see mushrooms as just a culinary or recreational thing, but some of you thoroughly understand what I was trying to accomplish there by administering the tool of psilocybin, right? So I experience a difference between information that is just words and the kind of embodiable data that can weave itself into your whole life and have you acting differently across years. I am definitely not advising that anyone else do this thing that I sometimes do, where I try to weave the lessons of history into my ready awareness or whatever. I don't know what the proper amount of thinking about the nightmares of history is appropriate for a child or adult, but I personally observe and realize deeper today that I have spent way too much time immersed in thoughts of Hitler and the Holocaust when I was growing up. The History Channel is largely to blame for doing this to my psyche. Then also my dad, who always had it on. So it was just like I would just go be in the family room and there's Hitler on the TV. It was just there was just a lot of images of Hitler and Nazis and that just so much World War II, Hitler and the Holocaust going on, being literally beamed into my eyeballs and brain when I was growing up at this same house that then last year I took mushrooms and watched MLK footage, media, documentaries, and just like immersed in just that story of history that night because my dad was on a vacation, so I was holding down the house. I'm pretty sure that this is what happened. Yeah, I had to. It was. I remember specifically even like being shown the meme that then had me read the "You Are Done" letter. Anyway. We jokingly used to refer in my household to the History Channel as the Hitler Channel because it was more or less a constant that old Adolf's face was on the screen while I was trying to enjoy a pastrami sandwich or pull up my snow pants to go play in the woods fighting imaginary Nazis. Of course, I always used to go out into the woods when it was snowy, particularly because it reminded me of the Hoth scene from Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. And I was always fighting Nazis. My G.I. Joes were always fighting Nazis. And there was the Cobra. I used to be able to do that better. Wait, I just haven't been practicing. Let me see if I can do it. For those of you who know G.I. Joes, the action figures, it was also a television show, but that wasn't that great. Anyway, the action figures that had the super articulative joints, limbs, that was really awesome. Cobra was the villain. I'll have to work on that because that's it's applicable day by day to be able to do the Cobra Commander impression. Cobra. So anyway, I would fight Nazis in the woods, imaginary Nazis. And there's so much Hitler going into my brain between the ages of like 10 and 16, I think. And again, I don't know what is the Goldilocks amount of thinking about horrible stuff for a developing mind, horrible true stuff about history that gives you perspective and context, right? But I do think that the Hitler to Martin Luther King Jr. ratio for me was problematic in my childhood. There was just a lot of images and learning about Hitler and Nazis and World War II and the Holocaust and just what we learned in school about the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King Jr. in America. And there was none of the stuff that makes America as a person, like as a personified entity. If we think about America as an entity that has made good and terrible choices throughout its inception, its existence. Yeah. Okay, let me get back on track to reading this. Yeah, I think that my Hitler to Martin Luther King ratio was problematic in my childhood. But here we are today, and I'm trying to be the most magical turtle that I can be. So, all of that is just is what makes you who you are. Anyway, there was a lot of Hitler on the screen. I'm not resentful to whoever was in charge of programming at the History Channel in the early 2000s, nor am I resentful towards my father for always having that on the television. I am all right with the way I turned out. However, if I were to have a child now, or if I were to be responsible for a child's learning development, I would try to orchestrate their journey from being oblivious about human history. You ask a 3-year-old or a newborn, hey, did you know about the nightmare of human history? They'll probably say something like, or like bubbles. Or let's go do something that's fun. Can we fly a kite? I don't really want to talk about that right now. Anyway, I would try to orchestrate their journey from being oblivious about human history to viscerally aware that they live in a society that requires careful gardening of good ideas and kindly movements by caring, optimistic people, or else we risk descending into something similar to the nightmares of human history. I would try to orchestrate their going from 0 to 100 in terms of, well, maybe not 100, but, you want to imbue a new consciousness with maps that help them out, right? Or maybe you don't. Sometimes I think that I think that we're staring at phantoms too much, and then other times it's so obvious. And I think that it is a good meme that is growing in understanding. By meme, I mean like the Terence McKennian definition of meme, like a big idea compressed down to the least units of communication. That's what I mean usually when I meme. Sometimes I literally mean like what we think of as meme is the square rectangular image that you see when you're doom scrolling. Which, by the way, the meme wars has been amazing lately. Okay, back to I'm reading. Wow, is my ferret brain so intense that I can't finish reading this thing? All right, I'm gonna not allow myself to veer off anymore and just read this. Okay, so if I had a child now, I would try to orchestrate their journey from being oblivious about human history to viscerally aware that we live in a society that requires careful gardening of good ideas and kindly movements by caring, optimistic people, or else it risks descending into something similar to the nightmares of human history. One of the ways I would do that, I think, is to try to give the child a better MLK to Hitler ratio in their first 16 years. And teach them what I really think is really, really important, a really, really important thing to understand about MLK, which I think is that society at that time was fiercely resistant to what we now see as obviously progress, right? The goddamn Federal Bureau of Investigation of the United States was trying to talk MLK into killing himself like a teenage internet bully. Maybe I should read that letter. I'll read the letter. Yeah, I'm going to read parts of that letter now. Have you heard this? Have you ever read the letter from the FBI? It's anonymous, but it was sent to Martin Luther King Jr. and it reads like a fucking teenager, like a shitty bully teenager trying to talk somebody to suicide. It's really shitty. Okay, so here it is. This is the "You're Done" letter. King, in view of your low-grade, abnormal personal behavior, I will not dignify your name with either a Mr. or a Reverend. I've got to make this more readable size. It's kind of, because this is the actual letter. And it's on a typewriter, and it's all right. King, in view of your low-grade, abnormal personal behavior, I'm going to read it like a sinister person.
In view of your low-grade, abnormal personal behavior, I will not dignify your name with either a Mr. or a Reverend or a Doctor, and your last name calls to mind only the type of king, such as King Henry VIII, and his countless acts of adultery and immoral conduct lower than that of a beast.
Now it's like I'm Cobra Commander. This is Cobra Commander doing the infamous "You Are Done" letter that says a thing about the nightmare of human history, particularly that of the United States of America's grim past.
King, look into your heart. You know you are a complete fraud and a great liability to all of us Negroes. White people in this country have enough frauds of their own, but I am sure they don't have one at this time that is anywhere near your equal. You are no clergyman, and you know it. I repeat, you are a colossal fraud, and an evil, vicious one at that. You could not believe in God and act as you do. Clearly, you don't believe in any personal moral principles. King, like all frauds, your end is approaching. You could have been our greatest leader. You, even at an early age, have turned out to be not a leader, but a dissolute, abnormal, moral imbecile. We will now have to depend on our older leaders like Wilkins and men of character, and thank God we have others like him. But you are done. Your honorary degrees, your Nobel Prize, what a grim farce. And other awards will not save you, King. I repeat, you are done. No person can overcome facts, not even a fraud like yourself. Lend your sexually psychotic ear to exposure. You will find yourself in all your dirt, filth, evil, and moronic talk.
So it goes on like that, and then at some point it says, again,
King, you are done. The American public, the church organizations that you have been helping, Protestant, Catholic, and Jews will know you for what you are, an evil, abnormal beast. So will others who have backed you. You are done. King, there is only one thing left for you to do.
This is the part where they tell him to commit suicide.
You know what it is. You have just 34 days in which to do this. Exact number has been selected for a specific reason. It is definite protocol significant. What? It is definite practical significant.
I think maybe that's a typo, or I'm just reading that weird.
You are done. There is but one way out for you. You better take it before your filthy, abnormal, fraudulent self is barred to the nation.
So, yeah, that's really important to know about if you're doing the American project, or it has been called the American experiment. I like to say the American project. I think that can put you in the game, right? Of that, how we behave and what we do tomorrow and what we embody across time. Today, I listened to the blueprint of your life. What is your life's blueprint? Can you hear that?
So that a Toscanini could say that a voice like this comes only once in a century. And Sibelius of Finland could say, my roof is too low for such a voice. From the red hills of Gordon County, Georgia. And the arms of a mother who could neither read nor write, Roland Hayes rose up to be one of the world's great singers and carried his melodious voice into the palaces and mansions of kings and queens. From crippling circumstances, there came a George Washington Carver to carve for himself an imperishable niche in the annals of science. There was a star in the diplomatic sky, and then came Ralph Bunce, the grandson of a slave preacher, and he reached up and grabbed it and allowed it to shine in his life with all of its scintillating beauty. There was a star in the athletic sky. Then came Jackie Robinson in his day and Willie Mays in his day with their powerful bats and their calm spirits. Then came Jesse Owens with his fleet and dashing feet. Then came Joe Louis and Muhammad Ali with their educated fists. All of them came to tell us that we can be somebody. And to justify the conviction of the poet, fleecy locks and black complexion cannot forfeit nature's claim. Skin may differ, but affection dwells in black and white the same. And if I were so tall as to reach the pole, or to grasp the ocean at a span, I must be measured by my soul. The mind is the standard of the man. And finally,
yeah. So in that speech, he's saying this thing that I've been thinking about a lot. I've been thinking about it in a universal context of just like being a person with ideas. In this speech, he's speaking particularly to a room of all Black people, saying, "What is your life's blueprint? That wherever you exist in society, and whatever chess move or just active embodiment across time that you can do and be, that is the movement. That is what that is." That embodiment across time is just like the loudest, most significant thing that you can do. Maybe not loudest isn't the word. The loudest thing that you can do is when is something that is a declaration or an act of protest. Rushing in, and then the most intense, and I think I would call myself against pretty much all acts of political violence and extremism is to just declare your personal enemy and try to kill it. That's I don't think that that's valid anymore. I don't think that helps as much as being a statement your entire life by the way you live, and that you're an embodiment of everything that you believe. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately. And today I listened to this speech as I took a little jog. Isn't that the amazing and powerful thing about holidays? Like holidays about historical figures, particularly, like man, so much memeing and sharing and thinking about something that is like, so got it. And it's like, and the place that we're in America right now, how good it is to be thinking about, to be hearing these words, and to be sharing that sentiment. A thing about that you are done letter from the FBI to MLK is you hear sometimes people when somebody's doing the thing that we do as humans, which is like we name our heroes and we have our like spiritual Mount Rushmore. There's a controversy about Mount Rushmore, but you know what I mean by metaphorically, like, you like think of those who are like your historical heroes, and then, think of your villains. And these personalities, these lives that were lived a blueprint, right? That can really help us now here in present reality to embody what we believe. The villains, you row away from the villainous potentials of the human spirit and humanity, and you row towards the example of someone like Martin Luther King Jr., who, in reference to the "you are done" thing, like the thing that he says about like your like calls him like sexually degenerate or something like that's like it's a thing that gets brought up now when people get understandably grandiose about the symbol of a historical hero like Martin Luther King Jr. or Gandhi. There's some things about both those humans where as human beings, there was like with Martin Luther King, the thing that people say is well, that he committed adultery against his wife, that he cheated, and that's probably, I wonder whether the "You Are Done" letter had any like awareness of that and was trying to like, ruin his reputation that way. But that's like when I hear somebody invoke stuff like that. Gandhi's stuff is a little different, actually. Gandhi's things are pretty damning, actually. Well, the thing with Martin Luther King too, that what people will say is, well, if you would have asked him what he thought about homosexuals and gay marriage, when he was alive, he might have given you a that moment in history, Judeo-Christian ethic response to that, and may have said something that now we would say is homophobic. And I think that with stuff like that, with history and with your analysis of people, that's a fuckaroo of a thing. I may not have the words for that right now, but one thing I will say is I don't think that there's any of us who are executing anything near like a perfectly righteous life at all levels of our being. But God damn it, Martin Luther King Jr. really went into the world and did a thing, like really did a thing. And we see now like both the boons and benefits and pitfalls of having there not being leaders to movements, with like Occupy movement completely just got totally co-opted and led astray. But there was something being said, that I think a lot of us resonated at first. And now with Black Lives Matter, there's like kind of predicated on being a leaderless movement. And I see moments where it's like, oh man, somebody who could address everybody who's listening and say guiding, careful, kind, and intelligent stuff like how Martin Luther King was doing, that could be really helpful for things like not being co-opted by other ideologies. And I see that happening, and that's causing problems. And also it can really help to have like this cohesive narrative that's coming from a person who is embodied, who's like trying their best, and leadership is a motherfucker. But anyway, I'm gonna finish reading the thing that I said here, because I'd invoked the whole my ratio of how much Martin Luther King images and words and general vibe and information, historical stuff was coming into me as a developing mind about Martin Luther King as opposed to Hitler. Yeah, so my Hitler to MLK ratio was there was a lot more Hitler, and because of the History Channel. Anyway, I'm gonna continue reading this thing. Okay, so I am not resentful to whoever was in charge of programming at the History Channel in the early 2000s, nor my father for always having it on the television. I am all right with the way I turned out. However, I already read all that. Okay, so the thing about that letter that really hits is very important to understand and to have historical context of where we are, who we are. Sort of, I wouldn't say who we are. Who we are is malleable. I think so. Society was fiercely resistant to what we now all see as obviously correct progress. But the goddamn FBI was trying to talk MLK into killing himself like a teenage internet bully. They, that's a big word. I'm really trying to pay attention to how I knee-jerkingly use that word and how others do, as opposed to we. But they, as in like the FBI and the U.S. government, or let's just say the FBI. They're going to tie the whole fucking government's a bunch of people. But anyway, somebody from the FBI like wrote that letter. They made it hard as they could for the guy who was embodying what some of us now see as absolutely doing the right thing, or as some call it, Christ consciousness, embodying and acting Christ consciousness, doing the right thing. But because MLK was so certain and courageous and persistent, MLK was able to champion victories in progress that we now see as obviously righteous and kind and correct. Correct, right? There's a lot to say about they versus us in thinking, and how, you know, what I think emotionally has us launch which one of those words when talking about people who do stuff. But if you ask my opinion on that, I'd say they is what happens when humans deny their humanity and act like machines that are fueled by the biologically ingrained fear of death and change and other and chaos, uncertainty. And then we is when individuals and peoples and institutions, which is made up of people, and societies push against the knee-jerk fear and reactionary momentums of avoiding discomfort or controversy and do stuff that embodies what we call our humanity. I'm going to say that again and fast because I like reading fast. There's a lot to say about they versus us thinking, but if you ask my opinion, they is what happens when humans deny their humanity and act like machines that are fueled by the biologically ingrained fear of death and change and other and chaos. And we / us is when individuals and peoples and institutions and societies push against the knee-jerk fear and reactionary momentums of avoiding discomfort and controversy and do the right thing, sort of stuff. That like takes a lucid effort, right? I think that's really important to pay attention to, is that if we zombie autopilot, we tend to veer towards Hitlery Nazi death machine stuff, right? It like seems that way across the board of humanity. It's like it's a lucid decision and an effort to not just put up more fence and barbed wire. Like that's because that's the animalistic. That's like that doesn't take the thing that is the human spirit thing, which it's like, well, you know, maybe there is a risk, but maybe we're opening our hearts for something important that we want to get in there, sort of thing. Anyway, that's how I see that they and us thing. I do believe there is something very valuable about investigating and realizing how the Hitlers of history are examples of what it looks like when we go down that road. There's a necessary fear to have about that potential that exists within all of us. I think that is important to analyze and be aware of, because I've definitely seen humans and myself really take our eye off the ball because you think that you're just inherently good and kind and you'll just always, that you don't have to work on that. Yeah. And certainly with institutions and governments, my fuck. I see the danger in assuming that zombified autopilot will auto-magically guide each and all of us to the kindlier reality that we consciously want. Like we consciously want that, but subconsciously, our subconscious mechanisms is largely about avoiding stuff, and that's primal and that's animalistic. It doesn't require philosophers and thought leaders and stuff. It's just let me avoid shit that might kill me, you know. And that's and so that's understandable. Let us not shame and judge each other for having that always going on within us. But you kind of got to push back against it if you want the world to become kinder and more what we want. Right? Yes. I think it's healthy to know what we're rowing away from. And it's pragmatically important to have our oars in the water of reality. My mom introduced me to this phrase, this proverb, this thing. I really, really like this. Well, you know, you're rowing, but your oars aren't in the water. Or you could say it about some turtle like that. Yeah, he was really rowing, but his oars weren't in the water. Oars aren't hitting the water. I love that. It's so funny, and it's just so the metaphor, the visual metaphor of someone rowing, but their oars aren't in the water. I do that a lot. I get really grandiose, and I launch on tangents of something that excites me, and sometimes it takes me off the path of something that is more rooted in reality and will affect more people. I got nothing against lying on your back in a trance state and like doing purely subconscious stuff. But if you want to have an effect and like we really need you in reality, particularly right now, like we need the kind and intelligent turtles to show up for and be a part of this big long game that is reality, the musical, the festival. Yeah, it's important to get your oars in the water. And one of the ways I've gotten my oars in the water of like history and stuff is weird decisions like, yeah, to go into a very open and, you know, because when you're on mushrooms, you can't lie. I can't lie to myself when I'm in that state. It's just pure beaming truth. And to do things like watch history footage really can have an effect of like, whoa, I am here. And that is the past. Let us row towards the things of the past that seem like the, you know, the better angels of the human spirit. And let us row the fuck away from the bad stuff. And if you don't like saying words like good and bad, then yeah, but it's a conversational convenience. A lot of words are conversational convenient, like weird or spiritual. I think that we could get a definition of spiritual. I think that we could master that one day. Right now, I think a lot of that's an example of like linguistically, it's like turtles will say spiritual, and it's like you're rowing, but your oars aren't in the water of like what we're all experiencing, and we've seen, you know, what that produces. But when I hear someone like a Marianne Wilson say that the United States of America has a spiritual problem that we're discussing as if it's entirely political, when there's a spiritual sickness that is within each of us and the individuals who are in the roles at different levels of society. Like, I know what she means when she says spiritual, and I know when I hear that it said that, you know, Martin Luther King Jr. was a spiritually powerful man, you know, and then absorb a speech, and it's like, yeah, that's what that is. That's what that is, to be spiritually aligned and resolute. And yeah, I also think that if we spend too much, air quotes, too much time, like I did, worrying about not turning into Darth Vader or Voldemort or some contemporary villain, or literally Hitler, it can get a tad psycho-spiritually counterproductive. This is why I like the phrase shadow work, and I think a lot about the concept of what would be collective shadow work. I think that's what we're doing a lot of right now. And I talk about shadow work frequently now publicly. I think that it's an important understanding, a meme to spread. It's implied in the phrase shadow work that there is a person that is casting this shadow, and the effort isn't changing the shadow, but making adjustments to the person by increasing awareness of the shadow, of the elephant graveyard. You know, and then the shadow changes because, or your perception of the shadow changes because it's now this thing that guides you to, you know, to better places, better choices, better embodiment. As opposed to this thing that you're avoiding because it's dark and scary. That's why I like the metaphor of the elephant graveyard from Lion King, the place where the light the light doesn't touch, the light doesn't touch, the place that we're trying not to think about, you know, because it's dark and scary, and it's where we put the things that we don't want to think about. The elephant graveyard of America is being examined way more in 2021 than some prior years, and we are starting to see more of the adults emerging to help guide us to a brighter future, I think, in direct result of the growing awareness of things like how the FBI treated Martin Luther King Jr. Have I ever written? Oh, now this is a thing that I wrote earlier that it was a part of a post saying that I was going to go live about this. I decided I was going to go live about Martin Luther King Jr. Day when I realized it was Martin Luther King Jr. Day this morning. I've been in a depressive funk spell rut. Since January, Wednesday, January 6th. Yeah, I spent the entire day of Wednesday, January 6th staring at the screen in horror. And most of the hours of the days afterward, mostly thinking about something horrible that wasn't, my choice. And I just being in that purely reactive state to other people's choices apparently fucks me up. And I knew that, but it was so pertinent to observe. I thought, I feel like a meerkat looking for predators when I'm watching the news recently, because it's like, is it going to be okay? Are things going to crumble into chaos? Is that like, do I need to know something so that I know to like, super hunker down or get anyway? We're in quite a time right now. Yeah. And that had me super depressive, and I was in a funk. There was several days where I was like, there was a day where I was entirely in bed in the darkness the entire day. And really aware of like, all right, I am kind of, I'm not leaning in, but I'm letting it happen now, the depressive rut. I watched a thing about depression last night, and that stuff could be said about that. It's not the best coping mechanism or like happy thought for everyone to think of. It could be worse. There are others who are suffering more, but that actually like helps me sometimes. Well, feel gratitude about my life and position, to know, because like this media thing that I was watching was this guy talking about patients that he's had that will be hospitalized by major depression, that will spend months absolutely paralyzed. And I don't have that. I'll have a week. I'll have a week where I am like pretty useless to the world. I think I'm learning things in that moment, though. I think that there's something that's happening. Anyway, I just recently, I feel like I came out of that yesterday evening. And now this morning I woke up really, really chipper, and it was MLK Day, and then I remembered about the taking mushrooms last year, and wanted to do this broadcast. And so I ask, have I ever written or podcasted about this one uncannily symbolic dream I once had that featured both the archetypal my render psychospiritually of both Martin Luther King and Adolf Hitler were in this dream that I had. And it was in this elegant and ethereal dance party in the golden ballroom from The Shining, as it appears in the Stanley Kubrick film. I am going to now try to share that dream experience and the meaning I derived from it. So I don't remember when. I think it was around 2012-ish. 2012 there was a lot of important stuff that happened to me, there was important stuff going on in my reality in 2012. And yeah, that was when the magical turtle thing kind of found me, and there's a story for that. That was when I was doing a lot of not a lot, but some really had some really profound experiences with like DMT and mushrooms, and I was doing my art thing. I wrote this song God Fractal that I think was one of my most widely absorbed art things that I've ever done. And a bunch of experiences were generated from that. There was people reaching out to me, and there was this sense of like, it was a time of feeling very into reality and my identity, but also, I look back and there's just so many things that were just early 20s problems, nonsense, just if there's a thing called being less egoic, being on the other side of more little ego deaths, or as I just call them, like ego injuries. I was definitely that back then, but I was also like, I was on. I look back now and it's like, whoa, I was on to some shit. I was just also very adolescent. And this dream I know happened around 2012. And I'm going to try to articulate the dream experience. This was profound as fuck. I'm building it up a lot, but this was really, I woke up from this moved and like, holy shit, there's no denying now that dreams are doing something, that when you go to sleep at night and see pictures in your brain, that there's something going on with that. This is the dream. Okay. So, I'm in this ballroom, the golden ballroom from The Shining. Midnight, the stars and you. Let's just say that was playing. That song, Midnight, the stars and you. And so I'm in this golden ballroom, and I'm perhaps, dancing around, sort of like, when someone's on the edge of mingling, and they're kind of just absorbing the party, observing the party, and absorbing a beverage. Let's call it scotch on the rocks, because that's what I would order if I was in the golden ballroom at a fancy, etheric, angelic dance party in the golden ballroom from The Shining. And yeah, there's angels. So you know how in dreams there's like, there'll just be an understanding that's beamed into your consciousness, and it doesn't need to be said by the narrator, or it's not, you just know. And I'm looking around this room and I'm like, this is like a party in the land of the dead. And I start seeing historical figures and people that I know who have died. And, I get it into my awareness in this dream that this is a assembly of angels and archetypes of the sort. And so that's understood now. There's angels. And then I start seeing more, people who are heroes of history, like how we view Martin Luther King Jr. today, like somebody who really did the thing. And obviously movements are made up of people, and we go get pretty grandiose about individuals, but there's really something to be said about what leadership does. And like, that's, it's really, really consequential humans. So I start seeing more of those. And I'm like, this is a party of like the elite angelic humans, right? And so, the thing in dreams where you're doing one thing and you're in a place, and then all of a sudden you're in another place, and your gender has changed, and you're or maybe you're like you now have tentacles or something like that, and you just kind of accept it and go along, right? That happens to me in dreams all the time. It's particularly problematic in sex dreams because things and people will just morph. And but in the dream, I'll accept it, and then I wake up and I have to deal with the fact of what I just dreamed. Anyway, so I'm in the golden ballroom, and the midnight, the stars on you, and people are frolicking and dancing and socializing. And now all of a sudden I go from, sitting at standing at the edge of the party, sort of half-heartedly moving to the music and holding my beverage. And now I'm doing this thing that happens to me in reality, hasn't in a while because of the pandemic and stuff, not a lot of moments with several humans, but sometimes at parties I can be somewhat extroverted, and I'll find myself essentially doing stand-up comedy for a series of minutes. I'm like monologuing, and there's a group of people, and sometimes they're sitting and I'm standing even. But in this particular case, we're around like those round tables with the elegant white cloth and the centerpieces. There's candles. It's a very, very elegant gathering. And sitting around the table is all these angels and heroic historical figures that that my psyche sees registers as angelic. And then I crack some joke and everybody laughs. And then you do the thing when everybody's laughing and you're laughing too, and you're like looking right, I'm scanning their eyes, and then I go by one, and I'm like really heart drop, and he's laughing, and I'm looking at him, and then he makes an eye contact with me, and I have this heart drop. What the fuck? And it's Hitler. And I'm like, I go from happy and jovial and telling jokes and like really, really at a peak of the, what some of my cohorts would call high vibe as fuck, right? I'm like in this elite party of angels and stuff. There wasn't even any thought about how I got there. I'm like, I mean, maybe I died, but I wasn't thinking about that. I was just like, I'm at a party and it's all like angels and historical heroes and like the good people. And there's Hitler laughing at a joke I just cracked. And I'm like, what the fuck? And there's like a pause, and I don't even speak, but I'm like, what the fuck is he doing here? And I'm sort of like vibrationally broadcasting that because everybody knows. And then the whole party has like a record skip, heart drop. Like we go from high vibe at AF to like, oh shit. Oh. And that's like what the others at the party are perceiving of me. It's like, dreams are weird like this. It's like my mental and emotional state in the dream world in reaction to Hitler laughing at my jokes sitting at a party that's supposed to be all angels is like, what the fuck is he doing here? And and that anger isn't just directed at him. It's like at the society, the institution, like the whole whatever it is this party is. Whatever it is, this party that I was sure 12 seconds ago was a dream time is weird. I was sure that it was a party of the good guys, the good people, the magical turtles of reality, and fucking Hitler's there, and I'm like, and then I remember Hitler gets real sad all of a sudden, like sadder than I've ever seen anyone, like more emotionally suffering than anyone I've ever seen ever. Like, and going from laughing and being in community with all these folks to like, if there was a ledge, he'd jump off it, like real sad. And my reaction to that, seeing his sadness, is like, yeah, motherfucker, like you historical cunt, what the fuck are you doing at our party? And so I'm beaming all this stuff at him, but also at everyone. There's a sense, there's a feeling of me of this whole fucking party now is now like scary, spooky, something is amiss. And it's like, and the blame is not just like that he wandered in. It's like, what the fuck is he doing here? What the fuck is this party? Yeah, I can't express enough, like just how much, because I've got a whole history with my psychospiritual, like my psyche's relationship to that guy, and then yeah, I remember that there's this there's this sense amongst the others where it's like their reaction is not you're fucking up our party. It's not like we're guilty of something and you've realized it, because he's here and we we let him be here or we invited him. It's like this, oh man, he's just finding out now, isn't he? Okay. And most of the people, everybody at the party, except the dream character, who is a historical figure that I'm about to invoke, everybody at the party is like, I don't want to have this conversation with him right now. Like, I just hope things sublimate, because right now the vibes are bad. And then I get a hand on my shoulder, and the touch of the hand is immediately like, for those of you who are familiar with this, like DMT breakthrough space of like bursting through all the fear and the discomfort and neuroses into like just pure perfect one with everything, or if you want to say Christ consciousness sort of thing. Like, I get a hand on my shoulder that hits me with the Christ consciousness stuff, and I'm like, oh, now this is like an archangel or something. I'm not really too aware of what specifically makes an archangel as opposed to an angel, but it's like this is like some sort of head honcho. Like, this is really important. And so I get it communicated to me through feeling and not words, that it's like I'm about to have something explained to me. And then so I look, and it's MLK, Martin Luther King Jr., as as a dream character. For those of you who just walked into the theater, I'm describing a dream. And none of them are winged, by the way. It's just like understood in the dream, like these are angels. And he looks at me and is like standing above me, and just very Gandalfian wise, like, I trust you, to answer my question of what the fuck is he doing, Hitler? What the fuck is Hitler doing at this party? That is, and what, I it's hard to remember in dreams, like, is it words or if it's just like those beamed in understandings. But then this archangel MLK dream character thing trying to tell me something in response to my what the fuck is Hitler doing at this party, and kind of shaming everybody for that, and particularly like wanting Hitler to suffer, and like, should I fucking kick his ass right now? Sort of like, it goes from that to like that immediate, yeah, I don't really know how to describe that other than the psychedelic experiences, which are really hard to talk about. Anyway, and what MLK Archangel MLK says to me is, well, I'll say it in words. It's like I know, I understand, we all understand why you're reacting this way. So 0 shame or guilt to you now, Zakery, for reacting that way and, kind of fucking up our party, just like really, bringing everybody down sort of thing. And, that's not necessary. He doesn't need to suffer any more than he has. And here's the really important part that was like really profound to me, is that he communicated to me that if you knew the like spiritual mechanism, the how reality, the mechanics of souls and stuff, like if you knew how that do, you would feel empathic and remorseful about directing more suffering towards this soul. And then, you know, I look back over at Hitler, and he's like, that isn't helping, you know, him much. It's like, you've really gone. And there's this sense amongst the whole party of like, you know, we're all here, we're all angels and dead people, you know, from history, and then I'm, you know, I'm realizing that there's just dead people that I've known, and just, you know, just people that have died that aren't necessarily like historical heroes or anything like that. And it's just like land of the souls. It's just like a party in the land of the dead sort of thing. And it's like, and it's not this heaven hell thing that my psyche was, you know, because I was given that framework as a little one. I grew up with Protestantism, Lutheranism, and then in my early adolescence, because I loved Goldberg, the wrestler, I found out that my father was raised Jewish, and therefore I had Jewish in me. And recently, I just found out from my mother did a ancestry thing, and that she had a little sliver of Jewishness on her side. So, but anyway, as an adolescent, I was like all into being like, wanted to pretty much do only like the fun and spiritual like parts of Jewishness. I just wanted an identity. I just wanted to be like Goldberg. But anyway, so that really is my like part of how my psyche about these things. Anyway, but the idea of heaven and hell, and, you know, intense. How do you get away from good and bad? You know, and I'm noticing that in this moment in the dream, back to the dream, I've got the whole good and bad, heaven, hell thing going on. Good souls, bad souls, villains, heroes. And everybody else at this party has been through some sort of mill, some sort of, you know, just like the mechanics of souls and when you die sort of thing, that has us all understanding that it's like, man, you don't bring that. You don't bring judgment here. It's and not like, not even like, nobody's mad at me. Nobody's like, you've brought judgment to our non-judgment, to our like, you know, completely through this mill that I don't understand. And by the way, I'm not saying that I like, you know, I had this dream and now I understand reality to be this way, but that was a really, really profound message to me at the time. You know, and I might've been onto some shit then about, you know, nature of reality. Everything is always contrast, and it's like, and the dark and the light exists inside of all of us, and like the potential to descend into evil is always a potential energy that exists in every human, you know, sort of stuff. I might have been on that like intellectually then, but this dream made me feel it, you know, and gave me an experience of like this villain of history that was like particularly like the villain of my psyche. I think that's, you know, that's a lot of us, particularly if you were raised with a lot of the History Channel, or as we call it, the Hitler Channel. Yeah, that, you know, so much hatred and judgment, and just like, you know, for somebody who's fucking dead, unless you think that he went to, was it Venezuela or Argentina that people said? Anyway, yeah, if somebody, you know, like, you know, shot himself and his girlfriend, and then was fucking thrown into a ditch and burned by his boys because they were totally surrounded, because he totally lost this world conquest attempt because he was fucking stupid and Scarfacian and tried to, you know, just go way too far. I mean, shit, if he hadn't tried to push into Russia, like, this might be a really different world. Anyway, back to the dream. I go from the most intense judgment and like upset with everybody because this fucking evil villain is even allowed to be at our special fucking good soul, good angel party. And then, you know, Martin Luther King, who my psyche registers as like pretty Christ consciously, you know, angelic. A the fuck up, A the fuck F. I like to say A the fuck F, because AF is, for those of you who aren't familiar with AF means ass fuck. So to say A the fuck F is to really, cursing helps add emphasis. Anyway, the MLK archangel, hand on my shoulder, like, is able to convey to me that it's like, that's someone you pity. That's a suffering that you may never know, that you will probably never know, that's yeah, and that really helped. So anyway, so that's what I remember of the dream. I don't remember what happened after that. Well, but I do remember feeling incredibly then going from judgment to like really embarrassed because they're beaming these understandings to me. The Archangel MLK character in my dream beams into me the understanding, just like the reason why I would want to take mushrooms and absorb footage from history. So it's like I can't do the thing that we usually do a lot, which is like deflect and rationalize and just avoid the thing where it's like where shit weighs on you and hits you, hits you in the feels, hits you in the I might want to make more of an effort to embody the things that I say I believe in reality. Yeah. I then like I think the dream ended with my being like, oh, okay. But then also, yeah, I remember him like, so I like go to apologize when he beams that understanding, of like, not here. Yeah, those words were definitely uttered like verbally. There's the dream thing of beaming understandings, and then there's a dream character saying words in the language that you understand. Not here. So I'm reacting to Hitler laughing at my joke, thinking that this is a party of elite, special, good people and angels, and then I go from that to record skip. What the fuck is he doing here? And then like beaming all of this shame and vitriol and hatred, and then having everybody, all the others at the party, be like record skip, fucking. Oh, damn it. This is happening. And then, the adult in the room, that's a big, important concept of right now. The adults in the room, where a lot of us are like hoping and praying for the adults in the room. In context of the United States of America, what is going on right now? Like there's so many of us who are just praying and hoping for the adults in the room. And there was an adult in this room, and it was my dream rendered character of Martin Luther King Jr. as an ascended like archangel thing. And he took me from all of the judgment and fury to guilt about having that judgment and fury to then like, no, you're good. That's a totally understandable reaction, Zakery. In fact, that's what this dream is. That's what this dream is supposed to tell you, Zakery, sort of thing. And then I wake up and I'm like, first I'm just like, holy shit, what that? A lot of my dreams are very abstract and don't have a cohesive narrative or like say anything like that. And that dream seemed to be really saying something. And then I, did whatever I did to integrate that into my being in the days and months following. But I find that every time that I say it, it's like watching a movie that you used to watch a bunch when you were a little kid, but you didn't get all the jokes. Like, like for me, it's Dumb and Dumber or Groundhog's Day, all the Bill Murray movies. I'll watch those having more years to have more experiences and mature and deepen my power of analysis, and it like will occur to me so much more, not just the jokes, but like the profundity of Groundhog's Day. And the same thing goes with like these Martin Luther King speeches. Like, how great is it? And obviously, not everybody, if there's a holiday to a historical figure, is going to like do a deep dive of, listening to speeches and reading "You Are Done" letters and, taking psilocybin mushrooms and just spending hours in the house that you grew up in, that you associate with like the old control room of your psyche sort of thing. Watching Martin Luther King documentaries and speeches and stuff. But I did 2 years in a row now. And that seems like a good like function for a holiday to do. And this is like, this is the way I feel now. I'm just gonna just freeform talk about this, and I've got a link that I'll put into this thing and see if anybody wants to join me here talking about stuff. I'm getting better at the thing where I just like somebody takes. There's not like a thing of taking it where I don't want to go, but there's airtime is precious because it is time. And I like conversations and not somebody just trying to use the nonsensus as opportunity to explain for propagate their ideology. I'm kind of I wouldn't say anti ideology, but the nonsensus is predicated upon the non-institution, which is don't take it serious. Don't try to define it. Don't attempt anything mutual without mutual enthusiasm. So it shall always be a conversation. Anyway, I just said all that because like I'm really capable of like blocking a motherfucker these days, even though that's not supposed to be my like vibe and brand. Because I just think that we all benefit from having conversations where you're not afraid to say something because it's not a statement, because we're just spitballing stuff. And yeah. And I just said all that, and it looks like it's not letting me share the link that would bring anybody into the thing. So what the, I get frustrated with technology sometimes. Anyway, what was I just saying before that? Man, what was I just saying? Okay, yeah. What I'm thinking a lot lately about something that I think is one of the symptoms of maturity. Now, I'm not calling myself mature, but I'm maturer than I used to be. I think for sure. So yeah, embodiment as opposed to an action, or like just there are things that are so they're really difficult and complex problems, and we think because we're impatient and sometimes self-righteous, messianic, thinking that you are going to be the hero. Sometimes that stuff kicks in and gets us thinking that we can just fucking just make it change. And sadly, I don't observe that to be the way that big changes happen in a society, or like this the thing that we got going on where there was like, what has been referred to as a spiritual sickness. I observe it's certainly a mental health crisis in this country that is affecting the political arena for sure. So it's and I have I'm not sure what the difference is between psychological and spiritual, but I think that for those of us who use that word and operate within the space of what we call spirituality stuff, then there is a spiritual sickness that we have become wrought with. And it's that thing that I was talking about earlier, where it's like it's not that people are bad so much as that autopilot for humanities. This is just my observation. Autopilot of humanity is really fear and walls with barbed wire, and it's not one of us kill it before it kills us sort of stuff. Is like that's the knee jerk. And that goes against something that I'll also say, which is that I do think that it seems to contrast with something that shucks that I'll say a lot, which is the Anne Frank thing of despite everything, I think that humanity is fundamentally or essentially good sort of thing. And what that fundamentally is like the part of us that is what we call our humanity does kindness, does empathy, does, or what could just be called problem solving, recognizes problems and injustices and feels that they must change and that that's really worth a concerted effort. And because it's not just a button that you press or a lever that you switch, that requires like what could be called spiritual strength and persistence and something that is extremely difficult, which is showing up consistently, embodying your values across years. That's really difficult. That's like the difficult thing. So few of us do that with high marks. I think I see how, really like this. I don't know how much if I've like admitted this out loud to myself as thoroughly as I may now, but like I was mostly afraid and kind of behaviorally paralyzed by things that have been brewing in the US of A, seeing momentums that have so much historical context to me and are just like such fucking grim stuff, to see that that's like, because I thought I really didn't think that we were where apparently we are now. And now, like, going to this moment right now, Martin Luther King Day, in January 18th, in 2021. It's so important right now for us at all levels of society to have that like spiritual, psychological, like strength, persistence, like embodied, to embody values and to know that it's like, this is the game we're in. If kindness and intelligence does not embody its values at all levels across the society from sea to shining sea, then we have seen where things can descend, So, and so I said that in a threat there, but it's always kind of both, And that's why I like the popularization, the the phrase and understanding of shadow work, shadow integration is becoming more. I meet more people who know what that means, and I think I talked a while and like less deeply participated in that for a while, and now I feel like I really get it, which is, I must be persistent in I choose to put a lot of effort into doing the things that makes it so that you embody your values more reflexively, because you have this felt, visceral, bone deep sense of what you're rowing away from and what you're rowing towards. And the metaphor of rowing and having your oars in the water really works with that, because there are fucking currents, and we've seen those currents sweep people up and take them to bad, dangerous places, right? And the thing that I think would usher in a kinder, intelligent, more equitable world. There's, every time that word equitable is said, there's somebody who's like, do you mean equality of outcome or equality of opportunity? And it's like, all right, there's a thing where we go into the there's a time for being academic and brainy and wordy, and then there's some things that really are pretty simple and well, maybe simple isn't the word. They're felt, right? And we know that something is that things are wrong here, and the corrective measures. I personally observe that the corrective measures are not something that will look like, and this is a different team and ideology, but like the storming of the Capitol the other day, like those, there were individuals in those, like I heard it was like 100,000s or like there was many thousands that were at the rally, and then there's something like 200 that like really like storm the Capitol. But of those individuals who were of the smaller percentage who were willing to, you know, put themselves and others in danger to fucking really hurt and kill, that somebody was killed with a fire extinguisher. You know, there's a smaller percentage of any group of people who like, you know, think something and are like on a team down with an ideology. And there's a smaller sliver who are willing to leave their houses and, you know, go to something like a rally. And then there's a smaller percentage that are willing to get rowdy and put themselves and others in dangers and perhaps break a law and suffer the consequences of that. And then there's a really, really small percentage who are motherfucking dangerous, you know, and that's extremism, right? And I've been personally like, in my work and understanding this and what I wish to like go forth with in my life, embodying this is that like extremism bad, extremism dangerous, because it takes you to a place where you believe that you're gonna fucking make you're gonna do what nobody else in history has really done, and just change huge, deeply embedded, complex, woven into systems, you know, sort of big problems, that you're going to change that because you're the fucking Messiah and and it has to be done and you're the one to do it. So you're just going to take that lever and just pull it. And it's like, that's just not how it works. And somebody will charge in and do something fucking stupid and get themselves in prison. You know, like there's this thing. So back to the thing of like with the example in my dream of seeing this historical villain and, you know, feeling all that judgment and hatred for him, and then having the hand on my shoulder, Archangel MLK, be like, not here. And you know, if you understood where we are now, you would know that, you know, that soul has suffered enough. You would feel more pity than you do judgment. So there's a thing with that, with stuff like fucking, you know, people who are openly white supremacists, like the guy who was holding the fucking Confederate flag in the Capitol. Like that image is so symbolically damaging that, man, I think that it's something to it's fucking terrible. And I think that even those who are most you know, of that understanding, that people who are open to being possessed by extremist ideologies and do stuff like that are, you know, there needs to be accountability for that, whether or not there's like a felt judgment from you as a perceiver. Like they got to go to prison. Like everybody who stormed that Capitol has got to spend some fucking time and time out. And that's what that's the system that we have rendered right now. I think there could definitely be improvements to how we do, you know, there's countries that don't even treat it like punishment. It's just you're on a timeout that is predicated upon your getting your like therapy and healing and getting better, so that when we release you, you are, you know. And I've heard things about indigenous villages where if you do you commit some infraction, some sin, some, you know, different wording, but, you know, essentially crime, that you're brought to the center and everyone surrounds you, and there's, you know, but it's not a guilt trip. It's like, I mean, there's guilt, but it's like the purpose of it is to have you be like this, you know, center of the attention of like really having to sit with what you've done. And the goal is to like realign you with the village to the point where recidivism is not as likely. Like I so want us to have that, but because we haven't had that, certainly haven't had that for everyone in the US of A right now, the situation is like some folks gotta go. And Marianne Wilson has been crushing it on Instagram Instagram the uploads. She's just been uploading these things. I don't know if she's putting them on anything, but I see them on Instagram. And you know, I thought shit that it was so funny when she was running for president. But then at sometimes when she was speaking, it's like, oh, I see what you're up to. It's like you're not necessarily trying to like win this, but you are pushing these ideas and understandings like into the collective psyche. I see. And man, she has been like really saying the things that need to be said for those who are about that sort of voice. You know, there's some people who are not going to listen to somebody who says things like dark psychic forces, right? So she said dark psychic forces in reference to like white supremacist, white nationalist groups and the stuff that Donald Trump was like at very least like dog whistling to. And if you're somebody who wants to defend him, then Kay, have your perception, your opinion. But at the very least, like there were really clear dog whistles that were, if you're not familiar with the metaphor of dog whistle, it's like there's a whistle that only a dog can hear. So you blow that whistle, and you know the humans in the room might not even hear it, but the dog knows what's up. Like Trump was definitely doing that with stuff like racism and just fear of other and just like this really fucking like primal ugly shit that like totally exists in humanity, but he was like galvanizing it and look what happened. And and look where we are now, where like stuff that I think a lot of us naively thought was totally in the past is now like the work that lay before us. And I'm optimistic about the long term, because I believe this thing that they're that the human spirit, if you will, like our humanity is kindness and intelligence, but it's like it requires this lucidity and this effort, and not everybody is awakened to that shit sort of thing. We say there's this word woke now, and it means like its current definition, as I observe it, is like you're aware of information about that if you are woke to that shit, then you know how to behave, and you know the move. And now there's somebody who's there's literally a march that you can join tomorrow, and that's there's this bigger thing that is not as sexy, that I think is like really sexy and attractive and like understandable to everyone, which is what is the blueprint of your life, like, which is like, I believe, I observe this, like that it's pragmatic, that it's a thing, that if we embody what I refer to as like kindliness and intelligence, I have this thing that I want to work on the understanding that kindness and intelligence are like synonymous. No, more so just that kindness is intelligence, and you're not intelligent if you aren't woke to the understanding that it hurts you so much to not, it hurts us so much. It fucks our experience, and our societies and institutions just go straight to hell when we're not making the lucid effort to be kind, sort of thing. So, and I think that, and I've changed the question from, are there, how many of there are us who are making the effort to like embody, for lack of better terms, that kindness is intelligence shit across these decades, where there's like, the clay is fucking moist, it's malleable right now, like we are forming the present and future. There's like the Legos are fucking all over the place. The connects those are things that were like Legos. They were like these sticks that had little joints that you put them together. I had them as a child, and there was like you can make a big huge Ferris wheel, and somebody made it once, but then it was no fun because and it was just a Ferris wheel, and then I fucking destroyed it, and all the connects are all over the place. Like that's where we are, like as a society, as like a species right now. It's like we got some work to do, sort of thing. Did I lose what I was saying? I think I just fell off that tangent. Anyway, yeah, embodiment. I like really believe in that. And I do think that there's moves. There's moves sometimes. There's chess moves that are more immediate, that are things like protests and boycott. And well, boycott is across time. That's what boycott really is. Embodiment. Boycott is a fucking vote. And then voting, voting is, man, a lot of my contemporaries disagree with me on this, but I think that if we got kind and intelligent humans in those elected positions, it's going to be a fucksy daisy of a difficult thing, because they are going to make it really difficult, because they don't want things to, change. That's terrifying. That's if you're sitting really pretty, you don't want things to change. And whether that's a sinister cobra, or whether that's just like, I don't want things to change because I'm a fucking billionaire, trillionaire. I can clandestinely enact so much moving of the needle, control over these pseudo-democratically elected people. Anyway, the thing I was saying is, like, if those people were people who were uncompromised and uncorrupt and kind and intelligent, I think that it could be fucking lit as fuck around here. This could be like, we would, I don't know about the time frame, but we would solve our problems, and we would, solve, that's the thing. We would really, what's that word that is just a fancy way of saying make better? Sublimate. Things would sublimate around here. And that's going to take a group effort, and it's going to be persistent across time. And I personally perceive somebody with a Molotov cocktail as doing it wrong, not just in the immoral sense, like you're gonna hurt somebody who's really just doing a job. They may have no internal conversation about whether or not they should enact the orders that they're given. They're just giving orders. They're just like, I see, police. I see a line of riot cops. As I find this metaphor to be very, 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 very helpful. I would like for everyone who engages in things where there's a line of riot cops. I used to do more stuff like that. I'm not sure if I shall again, and largely because of this understanding. Anyway, Super Mario Brothers. There's these things. Are they called the chomp womps? The chomp womps are. It's a cannonball on a chain, and it's got a mouth with sharp teeth in it. So it both bludgeons and bites you. And it's like, and you can't stop it unless you have a star, in which case you can run through them and kill them. But there is no star that I know of in this reality. It's like a line of riot cops is a chomp womp. If you come in its range, it's gonna chomp you. It's gonna womp you. And you can do and I've seen people do these things, and I've done this before, where you just kind of like, there was a time where it was like the Republican National Convention, was it, or was it a Republican debate, and it was when it was Romney versus Obama, and Occupy was going on, and I remember silly walking around the riot cops, and I was like, I was an adolescent, fucking very histrionic, performative, whatever the fuck guy was. I was how I was when I was then, but I was silly walking, Monty Python Ministry of Silly Walk. I was doing silly walks around the riot cops to demonstrate to the people, their comrades or whatever. I don't even know what I thought back then, but that it's like, look, they're only dangerous if you get within, their range. Now, obviously, there are times where people don't get in their range, and there's been examples of police, surrounding and doing things. But anyway, that understanding of that they're a chomp womp, stay out of their range, and then they're just these people who are super, well resourced and in armor, and have weapons and rules of engagement, and they tend to win when there's enough of them and they're ready, which they weren't at the Capitol the other day, and we're still finding out things about that, about how much like there was conspiracy there, and that's so bad. Anyway, with riot cops are just a militarized, purposely dehumanized human in a uniform with a helmet and thing ready to hit you and spray volatile chemicals in your eyes and shoot a canister that does another thing. I remember at Standing Rock, I went to Standing Rock, North Dakota. For those of you who are unfamiliar with that story, it was there was this well, it's kind of ongoing. Well, no, they stopped the pipeline eventually. They put it in, and then anyway, Standing Rock, North Dakota was an instance where there was this Dakota Access Pipeline that was going to go right through some Native American Lakota land, and so the people there were like, essentially, no, you're not. This is our sacred land. And then the energy company was like, yeah, we are. We're totally doing this. And then there was controversy about the legalities of that, but there's the situation was, we're gonna do this, it's gonna make us money, and the tribe being like, no, you're not, and we're not moving. And that inspired a lot of people to come to this site where there was this clash between the energy companies, and the police were clearly on their side, and there was like really ominous, sinister shit going on that I like observed with my own two eyes. I went there. It was a big part of my reason for going there. We did an event where we raised money, and then I was like, we're not wiring this money. We have to go there because I need to put this as cash into someone's hand who I can observe is like gonna do stuff with it, because I'm not wiring this because I don't trust that that's gonna be received. And also then I have no way of knowing what's the and that may be, anyway, I'm judging myself now for but it ended up being like a really good choice, because we heard there was a lot of the money that was being wiring that things went fucky with it. And we were able to give $600 or something to like right in the hand of this dude who was being real helpful there in really real ways. Like he was helping people. He was working every day, and he was just like really helpful person. If you give a helpful person money, if you give a mouse a cookie, if you give a helpful person money, they tend to help with it. But anyway, I had this experience there that changed the way I see dehumanized, uniformed, machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. That's from the Great Dictator speech. This one, this one?
I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white.
Yeah.
Will return to the people, and so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes.
This part. Oh.
Men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate. Only the unloved hate. The unloved and the unnatural.
Yeah, so that that thing, the machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. It's like, it's not a thing that I see so much as like a judgment thing anymore. It's like, it's just an observation. When there's a person who is now in the role of riot cop, or like the dudes the people who are defending the state capitals right now, it's like that. The point is for it to be humans who aren't making individual decisions. They are one body, and their orders are fuck anybody up who crosses this line, And I really think that this is like my knowing this has made me like very matriarchal in my worrying about people doing clashing with riot cops, particularly this summer. But anyway, so I saw this. I observed this moment where the riot police at Standing Rock, North Dakota, had water cannons, and they're blasting humans with these water cannons It's super fucking cold. It was so fucking cold in North Dakota. Oh my God. We slept in a teepee and there was a fire in the teepee and we were like cuddling for survival because it was so cold. And I live in Michigan. It gets really cold. It was so fucking cold. And they're blasting their fellow magical turtle with water cannons in the cold. And there was people would start a bonfire, they would just make a little makeshift bonfire and stand around it because it's so cold and they're warming themselves. And then I see the cops are taking water cannons and extinguishing the bonfires. And then people would come and grab a tarp and try to guard the bonfires from the police water cannons extinguishing them. And it was just going over like that. And it was just like, what is this? This is fucking whack-a-mole with humans. This is a fucking game. And the person who's aiming the water cannon, he doesn't have a heart. Who knows if he has a heart full of hatred? He's just, and that doesn't, that doesn't make it any, morality is not happening here. It's just and then the sentence in my head was, this is how we're hanging out today. This is how we're communicating with water cannons and tear gas. And it's like, and I just saw, and I was at this vantage point where I could see so much, literally not like I see so much, but also that, psychospiritually, I was absorbing a lot of this moment. And it was like, this is important. What this is right now is the reality of it is this is not we're not communicating. We're not that line of militarized, dehumanized humans in uniforms with water cannons and tear gas and rubber bullets and shit. They're not moving. This tonight isn't going to work. And I felt like, the just practical hopelessness of this isn't working. And a bunch of people are just being hurt. And then a bunch of people are, deepening their, I don't know what you think about like sinning and guilt or whatever the fuck, but like the people who are brutalizing these people who are defending either their land, the people who live there, or people who have come from other states, like myself. I never approached the place where I was getting, I've always been very, I evade violence pretty much whenever I can. Maybe not so much like in my like deep past, but anyway, that's been a thing. And whether you want to call that cowardice or practical pragmaticness, I see it as pragmatic. I just don't think that political violence is a good communication. I don't see it working. I see it, worsening things. Anyway, I learned that day as I was like on that vantage point, looking at, this is how we're hanging out, spraying each other with water. Okay. And it was lost on me for a moment. Like I didn't feel the thing where it's like, those are the enemy and these are my people. These are, there's two teams with two, opposing ideas. And because the cops in that moment were not, they had no ideology. They're just fucking people up who come near their line, where they were told to fuck anybody up who comes near that line. And I remember what someone's reaction to the lady who was shot as she tried to jump through the window in the Capitol building, where it's like, a friend of mine was just like, I bet that it's just a thing with the Secret Service where they're just like, okay, anybody who crosses this line, we shoot, So anyway, with that going forward, I think that's like just all around in all the things, because I think there's going to be a lot of course, there's going to be a bunch of political mass movement stuff in America over the years. And again, I shall repeat that I think that the most important and helpful thing, maybe I don't call it the most important and helpful thing, but a thing that we often like denigrate our capacity to change, to sublimate the world in this way, because it's so attractive and loud and easily understood to go and fucking, metaphorically throw a Molotov cocktail. And literally, I don't think the Molotov cocktail helps like at the fuck all. And I think, I'm open to discussion and debate about that. But anyway, I realized in that moment that it's like, this is not where the levee will break, a situation like this. Now, and eventually I really implore thee to look at the story of Standing Rock and how that went down. And, just to absorb as much, history that is relevant to the thing that you if there's something that you're really trying to be a part of here. And a big thing, I could get really specific or I could get really general, like one thing that I observe is the war on drugs must end. And, the Black Lives Matter movement has in the summer, there was just a lot of instances where it was clashes with lines of cops. And that is certainly has, meaningful and does something. But when I think of the graphs, like the of how many people are being killed by the police every year and the situations that, that leads to that, I don't think there's anything that would make it so that there are less, whether you want to be specifically Black and brown people, or there will be less police killings in the years going forward if we end the motherfucking drug war. And I don't think that there's anything that would affect that more, despite, other than a just internal revolutionizing of how law enforcement happens. And a lot of people don't think that just there's a strong signal that the entire institution is rotten by design, that it's not a bug, it's a feature. My leanings are always towards what works now. And I have a internal voice that's like, I personally, and we as humans, have a tendency to want to like to do things in a glorious way, and of course fast. As fast as possible. How can we make this world safer, kinder? But like with that, whatever works. And I personally think that, and now just generally, like all of our fucking problems here in the good old US of A, aka Turtle Island, like us as a people who we're all here, and we apparently, some of our neighbors are ideologically possessed and ready to do dangerous shit, like we saw, was it 2 Wednesdays ago? And fucking pray to God that this is a really quiet week, particularly, 2 days from now is when the inauguration happens. I observe logically with my brain and believe thoroughly with my heart that it is a worthy worthy cause, that it is like a good use of my time and energy as a communicator person who I'm just completely admit I'm not going near the violence. I'm not going near the violence because I can't. I don't think that's where we are anymore. I think that the control room, the levers that will change, that make the changes that we want, and actually make it like safer tomorrow, or like we've been saying this thing, when the country opens up again, post pandemic, that, the Legos are all over the floor, and the act of orchestrating a reality, a society, and like these institutions where there's, for lack of better words, less of the bad and more of the good, more of the empathy, more of the better natured angels of the human spirit, and less of the tragedy and wretchedness and machine minds with machine men with machine minds and machine hearts, that embodiment, and like this great pause that we have to look internally and at history, like to become that person who will know what to do. And for some of us, that's what to say. And we're all so different. We all have such like different powers and abilities and skills, talents, whatever you say. And like, I think I found mine. And that's like a big thing that listening to and observing the life of the example of Martin Luther King Jr. has like really, he's been a big hero in my understanding of that it's like, if it's one or the other, be the guy who threw the Molotov cocktail and goes to prison, and you were totally justified in throwing that Molotov cocktail. It was like, that was the thing. Those guys are fucking assholes. Like, yeah, this fucking building needs to burn. Like that, being the person who makes that, momentary decision, or because it's really and or because that person doing that has now thrown away their opportunity to embody across a lifetime values like today I feel like saying it. We are all God's children, and I love you all. And I don't know what you think when I say I love you all, but you know, we are all here. We are all here, and there are dastardly, wretched ideologies that that I am for the effort to stamp out the ideology, but I observe the thing where people don't have ideas. Ideas have people. I'd say that in a different way. The ideologies attach themselves to a person who is suffering and open to that sort of extremism, you know, taking over them. And if you can do the thing where you can be the person across your whole life, there will be numerous times where you have a move and you make your move. And sometimes that move is like real small. And maybe our idea of a small move is part of the like the human mirage to get spiritual with it, you know. That maybe that the things that seem like huge breakthroughs on the individual, emotional, psychospiritual level, you know, they don't seem to be like changing laws. But if millions of us are as we say aligned, I have both logical rationale and felt belief, confidence that as MLK said, that the I want to see that. I want to get it right. So I look at the thing. It's the road. It's long, but the arc of history. Yeah, the arc of history is long, but bends towards. Is my internet not working? Have I been not broadcasting this entire time? That would be cute, because that means I'm just saying all this for my own, which is important to me, actually, to be able to just to like know that I have the words, or that I'm working on them. Wow. Like I've been talking to myself this entire time. Okay, that's okay. And part of the reason why that's okay, that is like better than what I was working with in my early 20s or whatever, not to give an age, but you know, before certain maturing experiences happened to me, I was more big on I got to do something. I am going to be the one who steps up and does the thing. And now I'm like, the thing has to happen. And the question isn't who's going to do it, or how many of us are there who are aligned and, or if you want to say awakened, or if you say like, you know, with the kindness and intelligence program, like it's not a question of how many are there or who's going to be the fucking champions. It's like, are there enough, and will we show up when the time is right to do the right thing? And the time is always right to do the right thing, is a thing that is said, that has been said. Yeah. Oh, Mondo Mojo says, I've been here for a bit. Just another magical turtle. Okay, so I haven't been. I have been broadcasting. I was trying to look up the exact quote so I say it right. That the arc of history is long, but bends towards justice. I believe that, and I observe that. Look at the graphs of just history, of like how much war and death and destruction and just human wretchedness is being exacted through apparatuses like tyrannical governments and institutions like law enforcement in all sorts of places. There's there's mostly, and it's not enough, it's not fast enough, and we need to make fucking serious changes here, specifically in America, but it's all moving towards, with the exception of some places like, like North Korea, but I think that I don't know that, but I don't know. I have a faith that that we don't have fertile ground for more North Korea like totally isolationist and what could be observed as unapologetically evil government to happen. For those to like take hold, and I think that the really easy, simplistic, sexy ideas about a ruling elite that is aware that they're evil and sinister and they're totally
Cobra. How do we make things bad for everyone? Well, maybe if I push this button, it'll make things worse. Let us increase the unnecessary suffering.
that there really doesn't seem to be of that. There really just doesn't seem to be of that. Again, I shall say, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to have incentives, to have an impetus of evil for the sake of evil. I just don't see any, examples of that. Like I talked a lot about like the whole Hitler thing, and like that's like that story of humanity is one with a lot of context in the back. It wasn't just like this country of people who are wearing lederhosen and drinking beer and eating sausage. We're just like, what if we descend into the evil, industrially slaughtering human beings and try and take over the world, like most wretched thing that the world has ever seen. That's arguable that there's been more wretched things, but is that really an argument that we want to get into? What is the most? Anyway, the example of like the dissension of Nazi Germany is like, if you look at that through the mental health and, spiritual, psycho-spiritual lens, there's a bunch of fucking traumatized and like there was a bunch of people who had a bunch of available suffering, and what those who get a microphone and champion that of leaning into our machine minds, machine men with machine minds and machine hearts, like that person will always be around. Like there's maybe I don't want to say always, but like there's always somebody who's ready to lead the charge of the worst shit in us, and what it seems to be is that it's just like, it's opportunistic. It's what you do when you're that. And that person is usually a scared, sad, sick boy who is trying to fill the void in his heart by exacting revenge for things in his childhood. And there's this increasing understanding of something that I like, almost I don't want to be an objective reality, because holy shit, that's scary, but it seems like it's a thing. Ancestral trauma, that's a whole fucksy daisy fuckaroo of a fucking thing to think about. But anyway, like it's like, here's the question: are we fertile ground for the rise of a champion of villainy and evil? Or are we fertile ground for the ascension of leaders like Martin Luther King Jr.? And it's not just that. It's so not just that. And I'm totally open to the discussion of that we are like in a post-individual leadership era. There's that I see the benefit of individual leadership. But there's this thing that is like, I'm going to calm down now. There's this thing where it might end up being somebody like me who decides to do that. And truth about me, folks, is I'm a nonsense man. And I think that Donald Trump is totally a fucking nonsense man. He's a very different sort of nonsense man, who thinks he, has an answer. We don't know about his like actually understood motives. Yeah, we do. It's really fucking obvious. It's just like he was going to run with whatever ideology would have got him elected and got him cheered on. Like he's a person with a personality disorder. And I've argued against the existence of, or, you know, I understand mental health disorder diagnosis now. We did a podcast about this. Is a criteria that you meet. You know, Donald Trump fucking meets the criteria of somebody who is not, the empathy is not happening there, or at least not the fuck enough to influence decisions. Anyway, we are in this place now where we're going to need a lot of, we're going to need to find out how to harness love. We have fucked around and found out numerous times in history what happens when someone of ambition, who is usually a traumatized, scared, sad, sick, weak, heartless boy, fucking, I don't need to gender that. It's just, I was like, it's just like more, that's how it's happened in the past. There's a bunch of people who thought that, what's her fucking, Margaret Thatcher, that she was, I don't really know too much about Margaret Thatcher, but I'm sure there's some people in Ireland who will be like, that fucking bitch. Anyway, did I say, and I gotta stop doing that thing. Yeah. Cause I think that a really important thing of where we're at right now is that it's not like, it's like linguistic choices are important. Sometimes it's good to like augment that, but the stuff that's going to get us to better places isn't people making easy decisions like watching their P's and Q's. It's like a fucking whole bone deep, like becoming the people that we want to live amongst and be. Did I fly an arrow that I didn't land the ship there? Oh yeah. So there's been numerous examples of somebody of ambition who just wants the power. And maybe some other things, you know, maybe you get super duper laid when you're a tyrannical dictator. I mean, there's totally examples of that. I'm sure there's fucking like you got a fucking harem. And maybe that's a thing that's going on in them too. But for the most part, observably, it's just like, it's somebody who wants power. And it takes a special sort of person to be that fucking lustful for power. And that's what makes you become Cobra. But Cobra Commander is totally impotent unless there is fertile ground for a champion of, you know, what we call evil, the bad. And it's like, are we fertile ground? Yeah, and to veer off from just the thing of leadership, like, are we fertile ground for the rising of a leader who guides us towards the better natured angels of the human spirit, or who brings us along into the descension into fucking hell? You know, I like to talk as if everybody's listening, and I know that there's people who voted for that guy and who are still, some who are still with that. I will say, if you are still with that, fuck. I am not a dispensman. I tend to not be the dispenser of scorn and judgment. But I think that it should be pretty clear now that you are on what we call the wrong side of history, if you're still down with that. If you still live in what has been called Magistan, and that the effort now is to bring the people, the Magistani people, back to what could be called reality, or you know, America, and to do the thing where you where like the example of the indigenous village that has you know, somebody commits sin, crime, moral infraction, and are brought to the center and you know, reintegrated into, that are reminded that it's like, when you do that, you hurt all of us, you know. And right now the current situation is back to the thing about a count of motherfucking ability is I heard that it was the first time I heard somebody else say this. I've been thinking this, and I think I've said this in conversations with friends. But Marianne Williams, who I don't always listen to Marianne Williams, but when there is such a situation as this, where what's going on like really requires, for those of us who do spirituality stuff, who think and talk that way, like, it's important to address this through in those words, through that lens. And she was saying that, you know, indicting somebody and sending them to prison if they've, you know, done a certain things, and then there's people who have done, you know, certain things now, and I really, really hope are have desisted, have dropped their plans to do further things. even if it's just by the immense show of force at the United States Capitol and capitals throughout the country. I really, really hope that there aren't more things, because what happens, okay, the thing that she said was, you don't have to close your heart to do accountability, you know, and that moves me when I think about that. I'm not really like, I tend, when I do broadcasty things, to be more heady than hearty. It's like, it's a real difficulty to get like emotional when talking this way. Plus I've had a bunch of coffee. But you know, I see what it would be like if I were like a judge, and if I were like, you've got to go, you know, and it's not my job right now to lay into you the guilt and the scorn, but I'm gonna slam this gavel now, and you're gonna go away, because that's what we have to do in order to do the thing that both signals the deterrent of don't do that to the collective, and does, you know, what we can to have at least the, you know, the appearance of justice, which that's a big idea that's more complex than I think a lot of people talk about it. But yeah, right now we're in this place where we've got some people in our village who really, you know, have strayed, and they were led there. They were, and that's so fucking sad. That's so sad. And that makes me want to argue for the utility and the importance of leaders, is that there are leaders on the side of hate and fear and division and greed. Mondo Mojo says it all comes from selfishness. Greed is another word for it. You know, that stuff, which is a part of us, you know, but those elements within us, greed, you know, fear of other, that is expressed as hatred, kill it, it's not one of us, that sort of stuff. There is somebody ready to lead that. And I almost promise you it will be a sick, not a sick, sad, opposite of whole, integrated, aligned, poor, unfortunate soul who's going to try to lead that stuff. So the goodness and the kindness and the bravery to, as we say, fuck around and find out. Fuck around and find out what happens when we try, like really try to enact, to like structure as much as we can a society that like, a society that has values, that the society embodies values, which, you know, good old US of A has some documents that are trying to get across that thing. And it's totally not lost on me. And I do think it's important to have the historical context of the nightmarish genocide, the genocidal genesis of America, which, you know, previously was referred to as some by Turtle Island and still is today. And I can't really launch into that right now, but I have a theory about how this all comes together that involves that. For another podcast. It's now been 2 hours. What was I saying? It must have been really important because I feel the thing where it's like, you were saying something important, Zakery. My brain sometimes does this thing. I'm trying to get a handle on it. Maybe it's time to smoke a bowl. Maybe I'll finish this by smoking a bowl. Yeah, and you know, I tend to be I really don't approach microphones unless I can. No, I won't say that. I tend to be lighthearted about even the most intense, you know, stuff, and on purpose. Particularly right now, I personally observe, and this is what's been fucking me up the last, like, since the Capitol riots happened. It's like, when we're in a place that is as volatile as this, you know, and the temperature is so high, it's just like tension dangerously high in the U.S. right now. What do you do when it's like that? Because maybe, you know, God forbid, but what if things escalate? What if things escalate to there being more things where there's people who are armed, who are actually trying to, throw the metaphorical or literal Molotov cocktail, and it's coming from the super well-armed and deranged elements within what we call the right wing. And we know that there is some cooperation of people in uniform for that. There's some people who are attracted or down with that program, who are that really worries me. Anyway, we don't know I don't want to just rush to conclusions about that. Like that's still being investigated now. How much? Yeah, are there a lot of people who currently have the position of police officer or who are down with that shit? That's real bad. But yeah, what do you do? What do I do when it's like this? That's been a big question. And I tend to be like, I tend to become, I don't want to say that I tend to that. In the past, I've had times where when the temperature was real up high, and I know that a lot of the people in my community, or just like, the human community, are really, really all rah-rah about choose your side and fight for your side. There is no such thing as not being on a side. That know who your enemies are, know who your team is, and we're watching for what you say, because you need to sort yourself. You need to sort yourself into one of these teams. And I observe that to be what takes us to possibly worse places than here. It's pretty anyway. So the question that like has paralyzed me in the past is how do you embody what it is to be then? Because there's this pandemic circumstance right now that has made it so that my choice throughout this like months of escalation has been to do things like this. And I'm very humble. There's 5 people listening right now. That is not a massive psych. That's not. I'm not. That may not be even saying all the right things, which for me is just about like generating more constructive conversation that helps people align themselves to embody the person who knows what to do when it's time. And like it's such a complicated time because of the pandemic, because it's like by going out into the world. Anyway, what do I do when there's this split, this fragmenting and bifurcation of left and right that is getting so fucking heated? And of course there's racism involved in that, and so many more things that deepen it and make it more fucking volatile. What do I do on December the 20th? And the only thing I can think of is might seem wooey to, I think a lot of people would see this as like, that you have to be more direct with it. But like, honestly, the only answer I can have is like, well, I need to become become and exist and express as I wish for us to become. And I had this idea of organizing chess tournaments on the capitals. That might be more difficult to orchestrate now because of capitals are now seen as like a target for people who, I mean, they kind of always were, but anyway, now that's like just really intense. I don't know if I'll be able to do it at state capitals anymore, but I had this idea of like the Lansing is the state capital of Michigan. And yeah, we had this idea at the beginning of spring 2020. Pandemic was happening, but the things with the storming of Michigan Capitol, like that those events hadn't happened yet. I think. Anyway, it's a different circumstance now of wanting to do it at the Capitol, but we wanted to have chess tournaments where people who are, decisively have sorted themselves on the left or right end of the political spectrum, left wing, right wing, people who are like, yeah, that's like the people who are not necessarily always that it's like, one person is from one extreme and the other. I mean, it would be difficult to people who are in the far, far extremes, depending on how I define extreme. When you're extreme, you just need therapy. You just like, that's step one. Step one, there's something that is beyond, that is not politics. Actually, you're painting and projecting your sickness onto politics of like violent extremism. But anyway, we would get people who disagree politically to have chess tournaments, and that and the way that it would go is it's your turn to speak when the other person is making their turn, and it becomes your turn to speak, but they get to finish the sentence when you hit the clock, and it's their turn. And it's not like blitz chess where it's time. It's so awesome that more people are getting into chess because of Queen's Gambit. God, that was a fucking great show. Jesus. And it's so inspiring, the story of how it was made. I guess the person who wrote the story of Queen's Gambit was couldn't sell it, and was for years was trying to get it to a studio to get it as we say picked up, and was rejected, and people were like, nobody's gonna want to see something about chess, and now it's hugely popular and so good. Queen's Gambit, so good. That we would have people from opposite ends of the political spectrum, or just people who disagree about political things, playing chess, and then so it's like, it's about the game. You're not actually having a debate of who wins and loses, but the people who consented to be filmed and make a piece of media about this, don't you think those would be some really great conversations? Because I know there's always somebody, once again, there's always somebody who's ready to, be the mouthpiece or champion, a cause or a political ideology or something. And I know that there's people who would be like, I've got some friends. I've got more friends on the left wing of things, who would be they would be so, I was about to say sick with it, but we need to get out of this thing where we're dunking on each other. We're trying to move to better places. And I personally observe the way we move to better places is if there isn't so much of a contingency, a constituency of extremists who are immobile, who are they're just gonna resist you. They're just gonna resist anything that seems like it's coming from the left wing. They're gonna resist, and at a certain point, they're gonna possibly stand their ground violently. Like we have a failure of communication when that's the case, because there's a bunch of things that we totally agree on, and fringe groups and fringe ideas, and just being unapologetically hateful. I do not think that is as popular as the media makes it seem. And one thing that I'm really sure of is that sort of fucking wretched ideologies like that are only attractive to somebody who is currently meeting the criteria of mentally ill, sick. It's just a person who is whole. It is not a HOLE whole that avoid that you can satiate with extremist ideological nonsense. It's just like it's unattractive, and it just doesn't stick to them unless you force them to sort themselves and then give them more experiences of being hurt by the enemy and sort of thing. Anyway, we're in this place right now, and I think that what it requires is one of the things that's happening today. A lot of people are getting historical context. To be realistic, most of the people, most of the consciousnesses are going to, see a meme with an MLK quote. And if that quote is too lengthy, they're gonna, what's the acronym? Too long, won't read. Too long, not reading. They will, whatever that is. Is it too long, don't read? Whatever the fuck, you know what I'm saying? That most of us aren't all intense with it. Like, I can be, certainly was more so. Like I don't want to put an age on it, but let's say at age 25, I think that if you would have asked me, what's your politics? What's your politics, Zakery? I would have fucking spouted a manifesto. And now, and it would have been real specific, and it would have been really full of all of these points of contention where I was identifying who my, you know, political opposition enemies were, sort of thing. And it was just, and it was really, and now I see that as being pretty fucking, you know, convoluted and really just like distracting from what I think it is now, which is there's a bunch of fucking words and old ideas that I think we can just drop. And I think that the left wing, right wing, you know, gauging putting everything on the political spectrum of, is this a left wing move? Is the right wing flapping here? Like, we fucking gotta disengage with that, because we have so many things that are it's like the Bible was written at a time, you know, where this sort of stuff was happening, and now it's like this, you know, needs to be updated. And some people can just, you know, will just use their brains to put things from that are from you know, a historical biblical context, and just take the metaphors and then just juxtapose that onto the current reality. But some of us need help with that. And I think that, and it's like the media, like the mainstream news media, is like so much blood on that fucking, on the hands of that, you know, entity. And to say whether it's Fox News or MSNBC, whether it's Fox News or MSNBC who has done the most damage, I think that is a fucking stupid question. You know, we will continue to have the fracturing and the further dividing, and the tensions will rise every 4 years. And maybe it just will, if we do not like desist with some of that shit, I think it's irrelevant. And yeah, so if you ask me now what my politics were, I would insist upon being pretty vague about it, because it's like, all right, what are we talking about specifically? But it's like, I think that we need adults, and there's not like an age on that, but just, you know what I mean? Like the adult, if you were here earlier when I was talking about the dream where I had a dream, I had this dream where Archangel dream character Martin Luther King like puts his hand on my shoulder and like conveyed some really adult stuff to me, that if you go forth into the world with the understanding of like, what is an adult human? It is a child that grew up and has a particular array of complexes and traumatic threads, and some of us aren't even aware or trying to fix that shit. We're just fucking going into life and just spilling our problems into situations. And so my politics is now that there's some problems that need a solving, and it ain't as easy as repeating some shit from the past. It's like we're in a particular place with like quote unquote the economy, and what are we going to do when the robots take our jobs? Like, that's a big one. And there's like so much unnecessary suffering that we could veer out of, you know, if we have adults at the helm having constructive conversations with each other, coming from different places. We're so different. We see different stuff, and some of us talk, and some of us work with our hands, and some of us both. But some of us are just really, really specialized. And some people's whole program is to see like what's naive and stupid about, you know, some proposal. And then some of us are just like really, you know, like idealistic and like just so like governed and directed by emotional heart stuff. And I think that, you know, a coming together of that, I'm like, my politics is that the megazord of people from different experiences and backgrounds and all sorts of identity groups. I think that's just how it's gonna be. There's a large push now for that's that's got to be a lucid choice to visually diversify those elected and the electorate, and I'm for that. But I also think that that's how it pans out no matter what, because we're this puzzle. We're the human species is this puzzle. And oh man, like the spirituality of the East and the religions of the West, the Judeo-Christian ethic, as it is referred to, it's so different. It's almost contradictory, like some of the stuff that I think that is fire that like Ram Dass says is almost contradictory to that, which Martin Luther King says. Some of the things, like, because it's got a lot of that hero's journey stuff going on in it. Christianity. Anyway, now I'm feeling myself doing the thing where I'm launching so many arrows, I'm not landing the ship. I don't have a point. I believe the eradication of racism is I won't say believe. I observe that this is the year that we that so much more of us got our oars in the water of reality. And I observe and believe that the truth gets aggregated by a bunch of people. If a bunch of people are investigating something, there's all sorts of people in various levels of whatever, sincerity, intelligence. There's bad actors trying to spread information, and people who just want to like spread things for clicks and money and stuff. And there's people who are really trying to move the needle and do something. That whole, as it has been referred to, sense making apparatus, like we will fuck around and find out, and I totally believe that we're working on it. But it's a fucking really symbolically, visually grim moment in the United States of America right now, with there being what is supposed to be a ceremonial, peaceful transition of power being guarded by a bunch of folks with guns and body armor, and that seems necessary. Totally. So that's where we are. Where do we want to go? And those and the two historical names that I mentioned most in this broadcast was Martin Luther King Jr., Adolf Hitler, and I had that dream, and so I've had the thing where I think my conscious and subconscious, I feel like my oars are in the water a lot more than they were 10 years ago, and that I'm rooting more in reality, and I intend to live a life. I intend to go out into the world and embody some shit and say a bunch of stuff. And I think that having a holiday that has us all looking at our hero from the past has a helpful effect. And that's what I meant. That's what I meant to get across in this now 2.5 hour broadcast. Happy reality. Remember, you are dreaming. I love you all. I think I'm gonna go back to just being a turtle, living my life now. Yeah. I sure do pray for us. Not always sure what I mean when I use the verb pray, but I do a thing that isn't always talking out loud or moving chess pieces around on the board externally, but it feels practical, and I don't really understand what's going on there. I am a nonsense man. This has been the NONSENSUS. thank you all for listening. Be back on in 2 days on Wednesday. Oh, on Wednesday, I plan to go live a lot of the day. And hopefully there will be no news except that a new president has been inaugurated, and then we'll be able to we'll be in that reality, which could be observed as a different problem. But I'm really glad this era is ending, and here we are. We're all here. This is like the Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, and many false endings, but now I'm actually going to end. Happy reality, merry existence. Dare I say, God bless America. I love you all. Oh, happy MLK Day too. Is that a thing you say happy for? Happy reality.
Has this been live the whole time? Jesus.